Hey everyone, Coach Patrick here from Endurance Nation with another 4 keys of race execution presentation, this time taking you off-road to the mountains of Colorado and the Leadville 100 mountain bike race. This presentation is based on my performance at the race itself, where I was fortunate enough to sub-9, went 8:52, and I used the 4 keys straight up. Like there's no two ways about it. Racing without the framework that we have here with the 4 keys is putting yourself at a material disadvantage. You may have ideas, you may have done long training rides, maybe you ate some stuff on those rides, maybe you saw power numbers, maybe you talked to some friends, training partners, did some research online. All of that's great. But what really matters on race day is that you're actually able to pick up this resource and proceed forward with it. So from starting line to the finish line, you need a guiding post that's going to make sure that you're making the right decisions at the right times to be successful. And that's what the 4 keys of race execution is. So in today's presentation, I'll be walking you through the full Monty so you get a full sense of how the 4 keys of race execution works in the off-road settings of mountain bike or endurance races like the Leadville 100 mountain bike race. All right, are you ready? Let's dive in. Fantastic. Okay, first and foremost here, this is an Endurance Nation production. I have to go out there and just put that out there for you. My name is Coach Patrick. As I mentioned earlier, I've been coaching full-time since 2004, hard to believe, over 20 years. And I run Endurance Nation, founded in 2007. We have a unique model where we work with athletes in a community-based setting where there's peer accountability, where we have training plans, we have resources, we have live events. It's an incredible opportunity for athletes to up their game by actively participating in the process of growing our knowledge base, of racing and contributing and mentoring other riders, runners, racers. It's a space where if you're ready to learn how to fish, we're ready here to help you go that process and go the full distance to being your best self. Our job is to create self-coached athletes, and we do that in a way that is productive over the course of a year. And actually, we have a 3-year model laid out so that people can walk themselves through the steps, depending how far you want to go. At the end of the time inside Endurance Nation, you know exactly all of the parameters that make you a successful athlete. You've not only gone through the process yourself, but you've actually been able to explain it to others, to new members. And this peer-to-peer model is what really sets us apart and also helps set you up for great success. Okay? In this event today, I'll be talking about our 4 keys of race execution, a strategy we've had for almost 15 years now. And we developed it in the triathlon space for our long course athletes who were struggling with those 10+ hour events in the Ironman setting. We've brought it to other long distance events as well, including today, where I'll be talking to you about Leadville. And finally, at the end, stay tuned for an invitation to our next bootcamp for a race execution if you want to go a step further and learn more. Okay, so just real quickly, I talked about this, but just to highlight for you, 600 athletes on the team. We've been doing this for forever, and I love to race, and I race a lot. So there you go. Those are all the slides. That's me just coming through the Twin Lakes alternate aid station here, seeing one of my teammates here, Scott Alexander, on the side of the road, giving him a good wave. This is how our system works. Just an idea for you to get a sense of how it is. Traditional coaching costs a lot of money. You have to wait for updates every single week based on analysis. Inside Endurance Nation, we have a reasonable monthly fee. We give you your entire season plan up front after a consultation with you. And then we support you along the way, help you modify your racing, modify your training as needed, give you additional resources to help make you smarter in the areas where you have your trouble spots, connect you with peers who are doing the same event, which run that same timeline. It's effectively being promoted to the front of the class, in fact, being put into a special class where that group of people is going to collaborate and work together over the course of a year, or in our case, maybe half a year, like a semester, and get really smart and really good at what they do. And that's ultimately what we're doing here inside the team. All right. Okay, here we go. The first of the 4 keys. Race day is about execution, not fitness. This is a real mind shift for people who transition to the 4 keys of race execution model, because primarily everyone works all year about building your fitness. You spend 365 days a year measuring watts, checking weight, body composition, looking at your resting heart rate, all the markers that show you are or are not fit. You give yourself the mirror test where you take a look and say, I'm officially fit. Or some people have if your significant other says you look too skinny, then you know you're almost there. You're ready for race day. There's all sorts of external factors that give you indications that you're fit. The real issue, though, on race day is that fitness is not going to solve this problem. When we think about getting to a space like Leadville, we've got 100 miles plus to solve. We've got to do with it at altitude. A lot of it is single track. There's also mixed terrain. There's so many dynamic elements to the course. Add in the weather, add in the competition, add in just mishaps with your bike, like I would for you right there. There's so many things that could possibly happen that just relying on fitness and saying, I'm going to hold this number and I'm going to ride this number all day is not going to work. Okay. So we think about training, instead of just building those numbers up, is saying we're building a fitness vehicle. We're actually saying I'm gonna craft this entity, U plus bike, that's going to travel from all the way from Leadville, up Columbine, and then back to Leadville again. And then on race day, your job is to simply drive that vehicle around the course. Almost want to think about yourself as removed and slightly elevated over you, the racer. So we're actually operating the controls. The racer is going to move through the course, make all the right decisions, avoid the obstacles, use the power-ups when you get them, stop when needed to refuel, all the good things, pay forward the mojo, be a good person. All of that happens there as you're driving that vehicle across course. So in this case, we're actually being a little more objective than you might otherwise be in terms of how you've raced before. So in other words, if someone was maybe getting in your way or being a little reckless or dangerous in the past, you might have gotten really frustrated about that. And now we just observe it and we say, wow, if I've got this level 2 issue that always happens here at this level of the game, this is what I do with my main character in the game to get away from it. That's effectively how we're operating in this scenario. Okay. The reason why we drive this vehicle is because from your past race experience, the course is full of people. What starts off as a race ends up more like a really bad parade, the aftermath of an awesome keg party. There's people all over the place. They're disoriented. They're not really forming complete sentences. They're certainly not moving at even a fraction of what they were at the beginning of the day. And they're really in the hurt locker. And that is your marker. And we want to really capture that because you have that visceral experience as someone who's raced these events before. That is exactly what we're trying to avoid. We know that the vast majority, 90% of people out there are going to end up in that scenario. So your job is to not end up there. By doing that, you will by default be faster than the competition. And even if that's not your goal, you will slow down less than the former version of yourself, which is ultimately a faster time. Okay. Your goal is to not be Ricky Racer. We talk about Ricky all the time inside the team. So if you haven't met Ricky before, Ricky's just really excited, a little energetic, perhaps impulsive, some might say, and enjoys competition, camaraderie, but also sometimes forgets about his own personal limits or things that actually help him race well. So we love Ricky for his enthusiasm, but we also distance ourselves from Ricky on race day because he doesn't bring out the best in all of us when we're racing. Ricky Racer on a course like Leadville will be chasing wheels of people who are way faster than him or riding way too fast, even for themselves. Trying to win hilltops, first to top of St. Kevin's in my group, that's fantastic. Or even pulling pace lines, like, hey, get on my wheel, I'll do all the work here, let's go. I want to demonstrate to everybody here that I'm super successful. Newsflash, the people who are in that transition period for you, headed over to Twin Lakes, don't really care like that you are demonstrating your fitness. They're happy that you are, but the real marker is the finish line, your time at the finish, whatever your goals were and whether or not you met them. Odds are, unless you were signed up to be like hero for the hero portion of that transition, it's not worth the time or the energy to do it. You can collaborate, work together, be a good teammate on the road. That's not why we're here. That's the fitness speaking, and that's not your execution. Ultimately, we want you to remember 2 key words: patience and discipline. Those are what are going to help you move forward. So as you think about the race itself, you've got many hours to do this. Whatever happens right now, just be patient. We've got time to solve it. We can make better decisions, and those better decisions will compound over time. Quick, impulsive, rash decisions about what to do, those rarely yield proper results. Exceptions might be coming down a descent and having to make a quick adjustment for someone who pops out of the conga line that's walking up Columbine. That you don't have a lot of time to really think about that. But otherwise, as you think about your pacing strategy, adjusting for the conditions, changing your nutrition, or perhaps going back to nutrition and trying to evaluate mid-race what isn't working or what do you need when you get to Twin Lakes? Or when you get to Twin Lakes and talk to your support team, what are the things that you need to do when you're there? All of those are decisions that you can make and put into place over time. You've tested them in training with race simulations, and here you are on race day, making all the right decisions for driving that car. To put it another way, if you were going to go to grandmother's house, you might drive to grandmother's house. You know the way, you know the shortcuts, you know how fast you can go, you know where the police are. What if your kid was driving? Well, you would tell your kid, like, hey, slow down, get gas early, be smart, look out for the police officers. This is how, check in with me halfway, all of that stuff. That's how we want you to race. You can still be fast in that model, but you've just taken the edge off a little bit until we need it at the end of the race. More on that short. Second key, nothing matters until the line. The line on race day at Leadville is going to be pipeline inbound aid station. So 74.5, that is effectively where the race really starts. People will say, oh, the race really starts on Columbine, or others will say the race really starts when you're climbing power line, or the race really starts at the top of St. Kevin's, or the race starts at the beginning. It's the first to the top of St. Kevin's. There's lots of markers that people will bring to the table and say, this is where the race really matters. Ultimately, as I mentioned to you before, race day is about not slowing down. And we're trying to be faster overall. And the combination of that is using this line as a demarcation space to understand that everything that happens before that line is a place where we can use our patience and discipline and make decisions. And those quality decisions, from nutrition to pacing, to gearing, to position on the bike, to position in a group, all of those decisions are going to set up what happens at the end of the day when we're actually really need to dig deep and push. That's when we want to be there. And the line is that marker between the two. So everything up until the line, you're being really smart, thinking defensively, using our control when we have it. It's when you have the strength, you can use your decision-making skills and that strength to say, I'm going to take it down from an 8 to a 6. I'm going to slow myself down. We slow ourselves down when we can, when it doesn't matter as much. So we have that energy reserve and that mental capacity when we get to the end, when it really does matter, when we do need to create separation from our former self or separation from those around you as well. Okay. So when we think about proper race execution, it's all about understanding that everyone is going to suffer in the context of this race. So whenever you look at someone else, it's easy to say, she's really strong, she's got great skills, or he's obviously done this a bunch of times, he knows what he's doing, or he's got this incredible bike and I don't have this incredible bike. There's all sorts of things that we project on other people around us. All of that is really just wasted energy. Our job is to make sure that we're making all the right decisions for us. Where am I right now? Am I doing the right thing? Can I go a little bit easier and still achieve my goal? Can I be a little smarter here and do the right thing? Coming up on an aid station and it's time for me to fuel. The Ricky racer, and he's going to say, if I skip this aid station, I get to make up 3 minutes and pass a whole bunch of people. But it's mile 24. It doesn't matter across the course of a 100-mile day if those 3 minutes right there, those 3 minutes right there might be the most valuable 3 minutes of your day. You won't know until it's all said and done. But we know that the line is now at 74.5. Before the line, we make those smart decisions. We do the right things. Again, all Ricky Racy later. So the nice part about this is, remember, we're doing the opposite of everyone else. So right now, everyone else out on the course is going way too hard. So what's your job? Your job is to get on the back of those groups. Your job is to follow people on the lines, be really smart, stay within yourself, keep your heart rate down, keep your numbers down, be fast by using the group, but not so working so hard that you're sapping that valuable energy that you're going to need at the end to both tackle power line, but also to push to the line up to St. Kevin's and then even beyond. Okay. Remember, we define success at this point as not slowing down. And so doing everything right to the line allows us to slow down less. The inverse of that is what most other people talk about, which is how fast can I be here? They'll compare segments and see who's faster. What you don't see in that analysis is who did less work before the faster segment. So if you see someone who climbed power line at a certain time, say they climbed power line in 43 minutes, which is insane and incredible. You don't know everything they did before those 43 minutes. If you are so focused on those 43 minutes that you don't make good decisions leading up to that point in time, you won't even come close to the 43 minutes or whatever your personal version may be. You have to do really well. And the data doesn't typically show that. And people don't talk about all the times that they were smart, cheesy, ate more, and sat at the back. Right? Those are not part of the post-race interview series. Everyone's a hero in their own story, and you will be a hero in your own story as well. When we think about race execution, remember, we're doing the opposite of the majority of people. And in this case, we're using that line, about 74.5, pipeline inbound aid, as an opportunity for us to say everything to that point is staying inside of our box. And then after that, we start saying, what do I do now to successfully impact the outcome of my race? Where can I step on the gas, etc. And I know what you're thinking. It's really hard. What am I going to do? Getting there is going to be brutal. And that comes our third key. The third key is the box. The way that we use the box is we place everything. We take our fitness. I got your fitness. I packed it. Great. Put it inside the box. Your head, like all those ideas about going faster and being like Ricky. Okay. Put it inside the box. And then ultimately, when you take a look inside that box, everything inside the box, it's effectively what we're driving around the course. Everything inside that box is what we can control. And this is really important. You cannot control if it's going to rain. You cannot control if it's going to be hot, but you can choose the gear that you wear. You can also choose how you're going to pace your nutrition. Okay? You cannot control the people around you who are maybe being a little reckless on a descent, or people in front of you who are maybe going too slow up the climb. Just can't do it. But what you can do is change your strategy, your pacing, and make adjustments accordingly. You can choose where to pass. You can choose to opt into a faster descent or opt out of a faster descent. All those pieces are up to you. But the key part is when you notice something happening external to you, we observe it, and then we use that information to make a decision for us that we can control. So if you see someone being reckless, yeah, I guess you could chase them down, holler at them and say, be less reckless. They're inside their own world. They're managing themselves. They are not your responsibility. Your job is to manage yourself. Conserve your energy, stay inside your box and say, how am I doing relative to my goals? Okay. This is really important because what we're trying to do here is keep our box as big as we can for as long as we can. The box unfortunately, gets smaller and smaller as the day goes on, as your ability to project forward and pace and manage things accordingly starts to shrink as you become more and more fatigued. The conditions take a wear and tear on your body, as do your efforts across the day. These longer events are super tough. And so staying inside this box for as long as we can, that's the tool that we're going to use to get ourselves from the start line to the line. In this case, 74.5 at pipeline inbound. Okay. So when we think about that process, everything we're doing goes inside the box. And again, if you can't control it, it goes outside of the box. This is a great tool to use even during race week. If your crazy aunt's coming to watch you and she wants to go try out some new sushi restaurant that's always got a great line out the door the night before the race, you don't want to do that. That's not inside your control. That's her idea. That's what she wants to do. She should totally go do it. You stay inside your box and do what you want to do. Stay at home, make your own dinner, stay at home with friends, do whatever you're doing. Like, you have your plan, stick to your plan, stay inside your box. Do not be tempted to go outside your box. That is where we start to run into troubles. We start to pretend to be like other people, to race like other people have prepared to race. And ultimately, all of that jeopardizes your ability at the end of the day. Another element of the box, which I think is really important, is that problems don't last inside the box. Problems are only solved. So if something goes wrong, let's say, for example, your rear brake isn't really working anymore. The lever's kind of all jacked up. That's a problem. We need to solve for it. We need to find a solution for it. Once we found a solution for it, we're using the solution. The problem is gone. So we don't obsess about the things that have happened to us. Race day really is just solving a series of problems across the course of the day. Once you solve that problem, you've got your solution. The solution is now the new process, the old process, which is broken, out the back. We could talk about it later. We can stress about it. We can reminisce about it and say, why me, all of it. That's great. Plenty of time to do that over the rest of the year or after the race or whatever it is. But right now, we just have to operate this box, get it to the line so we can be successful, and then get it from there to the finish, right? And that's what we're trying to do. So the box is a place where problems go to be solved, but then they're kicked out the back when we stick with our solution. Very important mindset for you to have. Ted Lasso might say, race like a goldfish. You decide what it is that works for you, but that's ultimately a really important aspect of the box. All right, the fourth and final key, the one thing. I know you probably thought it was something to do with the finish line, right? It might be for you. Whatever it is, what you have to understand is that the mental component of endurance racing is massive. It's completely underrated. And the majority of us develop the tough mental skills, we call it a mental six-pack inside Endurance Nation, to get really strong and effective at doing our daily workouts. Bad weather, I get the workout done. Don't feel great, I get the workout done. Could take a shortcut right here, I skip it, I keep going. Could go the flat way or the hilly way, I pick the hilly way. We're very good most of the year picking the more challenging piece. It's what gives us the fitness. It's the drive. It's the energy. It's a place where we go into the well and pull out a source that allows us to go forward, something of the power that allows us to continue to do the training and prepare us to hit the start line of these events in a condition where we're confident we can be able to finish it. The challenge is that race day and what it brings to the table isn't about fitness really at all. Your fitness will be tested. It will work at times and it will not work at other times. The real challenge is, do you have the mental game to not only enforce the 4 keys framework on your day as you're executing, but also to handle the really tough times? Because there will be a time in the race, and this goes for any race, not just something like Leadville, some even shorter races, 10K races. It could be just a metric century race, whatever it may be, or even just a long ride where things get hard. There comes a time when your body is able to put up such a convincing argument that your mind is willing to let go of goals and objectives that it's had for a lifetime, perhaps, or for at least the better part of a year. Your body will say, my stomach doesn't feel good, and oh, here's a calf cramp, and woe is me, like I can't believe a lockout's not working on the front suspension. Now I've just got the suspension again. I'm just so mad. Everything's happening to me. I'm at a disadvantage, blah, blah, blah. Everything's happening to me. What's happening in that case probably is low blood sugar, just as a result of extreme work and stress across the course of the day. And this is the period of time where we have to break out our one thing. The one thing is really important because it's the clear light at the end of the tunnel. And let's be really like fact-based here. Right now, at this point of the race, after the line, things are a tunnel. Things become really narrow. You're not observing the whole course anymore. You're really just seeing straight ahead. You're seeing 10 people in front of you, maybe 5 people in front of you. You're not thinking about the next aid station. You're thinking about the next 5 minutes. Like, how do I keep going? You're not thinking about getting to the top of the climb. You're thinking about getting to the top of this ridge without your adductor cramping or your quad going nuts, right? All those different elements that you're dealing with are really hard. And what is going to keep you moving? It's the one thing. So we want to prepare this argument ahead of time. Understand the vast majority of the race is mental, not physical. And we have to be ready with this one thing. So when your body says, you have to say, I've got my one thing. And we have it prepared ahead of time so you can shut that argument down before it gets too crazy. Think about a long car ride. I'll go back to the kid example. Long cross-country car ride with the kiddos in the back. It's going to be bad, but you've got a plan on how you're going to handle it. Sometimes you're nice and you got like little treats or gifts or distraction things, and other times you're not. And you're like, hey, that's it. Enough of the back talk, enough of the craziness. We're going to just hold it together until we get here. Or tonight we're going to get to Columbus, Ohio. Just get 2 more hours. We're going to hold it together until we get here. You need some kind of guideline or rule that keeps the troops, whether it's in your car or whether it's the muscle fibers in your calves or your lower back or your neck, or just that doubt that's creeping in the back of your mind. It puts them in their place and says, like, I got to say my piece, but I'm not going to be listened to today. And that one thing becomes really important. And the one thing and the power of the one thing, you can always, we want you to develop it ahead of time, but the power of the one thing is directly correlated to your energy expenditure, your nutrition, your pacing, everything that gets you to the line. Because once you get beyond the line, things get hard. Your ability to think, to enforce your one thing, and to stay focused on the elements that are successful for you, all are predicated on those early decisions. You could have a fantastic one thing, but if you haven't been fueling yourself and you're low blood sugar, even if you have a great one thing, your body's not going to have the capacity to execute on it. It's going to be exhausted. It'd be incapable of providing you with the energy that you need. So that's why that execution piece really matters. So when everything hits the fan and you have to figure something out, you go to your one thing. Understand that you will probably have to pull that one thing out multiple times. When I did Leadville, that one thing came out for me at pipeline inbound aid when I realized that I could keep going. Then I went up pipeline. I had to start walking, and I was like, how fast can I walk? And I was like, I see people jogging. My one thing is to make it under 9. So I'm going to jog up this hill as much as I can. I saw that I couldn't really climb with the best of them on the line that I had on the upper half of power line. But my one thing was like, okay, that's all right. We're just going to stay here because there's only so much we can do. When we get to the top, when it flattens out over the top of Sugarloaf, you're going to crush that part. It's totally what I did. I passed 10 people inside that section and got back in the game. Even if that wasn't necessarily correlated with a better finish time, I was mentally engaged, chasing my one thing and using that as the indicator for which am I or am I not on track to hit my one thing. Forget about the times at this point in time. Forget about those stuff. You're making decisions that allow you to execute according to that one thing and go forward. So all of those decisions get in there. And the positive momentum and the positive feedback you get when you're inside the space executing one thing is addictive, and it's self-reinforcing. So you start to get stronger and exhibit stronger behaviors towards the end of the race, and you start seeing other racers who are hurting, or perhaps you're passing them, or there's terrain that you are worried about, but you're already halfway up it, or you're at the top, etc. All of those things become fuel to the fire. You're like, I'm actually doing it. I'm in this space. And it's incredible, because what you're effectively doing with the one thing, if you do it right, is you're taking that extra energy that we have at the finish line. When someone can see the finish line and people start sprinting, we're taking that energy and we're bringing it earlier in the race and we're spreading it out so that we can start to make lots of small decisions that prepare you to reach your one thing goal over time in a way that you can't simply do if you've exhausted yourself earlier, or if you don't have that one thing on hand ready to deal with the demons, the voices that come out and really struggle to push you forward. Okay? And that's the biggest piece there. All right. I hope you enjoyed this presentation on Leadville and the 4 keys of race execution. Just so you know, we do the 4 keys for all manner of events, from ultra running to triathlon to mountain bike races to gravel races as well. It's a key part of how we help our athletes succeed over time, not just through our coaching model and the frameworks that we have, which are reinforced and built into the 4 keys, race simulation workouts, creating race reports and getting feedbacks, creating a race nutrition plan, all integrated within our endurance station system, but also giving our athletes an opportunity to exhibit and execute really well. We don't look at finishes by total time. I went 8:52. That's great. What's more important to my teammates in the community is that I had a plan. They saw my plan. I executed my plan. They can measure my data against my plan. And they know that I used their help, their knowledge, their insight to do well. My race is built on the footsteps of others who've come before me, and I will pay that forward inside the community. And should you choose to join us, you'll be able to take advantage of that same resource as well. If you're not quite sure yet, check out this race execution bootcamp. I'll put the link below this so you can learn more about it. I hope to see you inside of our community at some point in time. If you're tired of just racing and giving everything and never coming there, never coming to the finish line the way that you want, always finishing with too little in the tank, just not having the extra edge that you need to be successful, the 4 keys of race execution designed specifically for you, and I hope you take advantage of it. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Coach Patrick. I'll see you soon.